Before we proceed, let us adopt an attitude of prayer as we invite the Lord's presence in our midst, and we invite Mr. Wilson to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, CTD Cole. Good morning, everyone. When one thinks of Melissa, we cannot but reflect on the word of the Lord that says, "It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed, because of his compassion faileth not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness." Lamentation 3:22 to 23. Lord Jesus, we give you thanks this morning for life. We thank you for health. We thank you for strength. We thank you for your manifold blessings. Lord, I come to you seeking your divine guidance, your wisdom, as the honorable minister prepares to speak today. Lord, we pray that you will fill our hearts with peace, calm, Lord, any anxiety, and grant him the clarity to articulate the message effectively. Help us, Lord, to speak graciously, with courage, with compassion, using his voice to reveal truth, to build understanding, and to encourage development. May your Spirit guide his thoughts, his words, his action, ensuring that they reflect your grace and purpose. Give us all the humility to listen well and the strength to stand firm in what is right, even when challenged. Bless this gathering and all who listen, that our communication may be to the glory and honor and to the good of our country and even beyond our national borders. These and other mercies we ask. In Jesus' name I pray. And could everyone say amen?
Right. So that is Mr. I.W. Wilson, Project Management Specialist. And I don't think it's a new discovery that he is a man of the cloth. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to specially recognize and welcome some of our attendees. I don't know how I do that. I perhaps will have to just, it's everyone who welcoming. But I think we're going to just ask everybody to say who they are, what you do, where you're from, because you have all been on the front line. But first of all, let me welcome our hard-working Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, Honorable Floyd Green. Give him a round of applause, please. Excellent, thank you very much. And I'll just ask our senior executives and members of the Ministry of Agriculture in the room here, Fisheries and Mining in the room here, to just introduce yourselves very quickly so we can get into the main part of our event this morning. We'll start on my, what is this, left? Go ahead. Ministry.
Garnet Edmondson, CEO, RADA.
Commission number advisor to Minister Green.
Melanie Cohen, PR manager.
Deidre Lascadero, Senior Director of Human Resource Management and Development.
Husband Larceny, Permanent Secretary Office.
Good morning, everyone. Marsha Locke, Senior Assistant Attorney General.
Good morning, Sandra Graham, Principal
Any other Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining staff or official? Yeah, you can say your name quickly, please. All right, thank you very much. Is that it? Well, I see Miss Busy Yolande Gibson, who is our PR specialist here. I'm always busy, so sometimes not enough time to say your name. All right, thank you very much. And other distinguished guests, you're not to be left out. Members of the media, you're very important to us, and we welcome you here in a very special way. And we have viewers on various platforms across the social media, and we want to welcome them also to this, our press briefing. Ladies and gentlemen, on October 28th, we went through what we could call a dark day. Our nation's history will have that as an antecedent to those who will come behind us. It was the day Jamaica endured the unprecedented force of Hurricane Melissa. All of us would have experienced it, but I can't help but to repeat. It was a Category 5 hurricane that caused extensive damage across multiple sectors and disrupting many lives, disrupting industries, our own ways of life. Our agricultural sector was not spared. And this is why we're doing this morning, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a short run-up for the minister. We're not going to say much, or there won't be much ado before he comes up. So this is why we want to welcome him. He won't come immediately. I'll just say a few things. Because, you know, I usually say that when you talk about minister, at introducing him, you have a long form and a short form. You know, so the long form is so impressive that you want to go into it. The shorter version is also so impressive that I think I want to go into it. But nevertheless, I will, you know, just leave it for now. I'll just leave it for now. Young, energetic, brilliant. What other adjectives do I use? Hardworking Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, and I wonder if he sleeps. From the moment the hurricane struck, he was on the ground attending to the needs of our citizens. I don't know if anybody has seen the clip of him in his raincoat out in Black River when the light and power men were trying to put the power lines back intact. You should have seen him. If you haven't seen it yet, go and search for it. I think, ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we welcome our Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, Honorable Praedial.
Thank you very much, our Chief Technical Director, Mr. Courtney Cole. I think he really enjoys when he gets these opportunities to be a master of ceremonies. You can, as country people say, in him aki. All right, our Chief Technical Director, members of the ministry, our heads of agencies, of course, our farmers and our fishers, those who have joined us online and across the various platforms, members of the media. For those who I'm seeing for the first time, I know we are 20 days in, but let me still wish for all of you a happy new year, a wonderful 2026. Good to see you. Dr. Watson, I wish for you peace and prosperity and all that is good. It's great to see so many of you this morning. I'm hoping that all our press briefings will be like this, where we will have a full house of media, and not only after the disasters. We want, when we come with good news as well, when things are going well, that we get a full house. So I'm very, very happy to see members of the media, and I do wish for you a wonderful 2026.
This is the ministry recommencing our quarterly press briefings. We had started it a little while back. We had unfortunately had to take a break with Hurricane Melissa and with our election cycle, and now we're back at it. So I just want to say to members of the media, every quarter we will have a briefing of this nature. We do have a lot of ground to cover today, and I will try to go as quickly as possible so that I can open up for your questions. And we will look at today our Hurricane Melissa recovery program, where we are and how we move forward from here. What are the interventions that will guide us for the rest of this quarter towards the end of the financial year? We will also spend some time quickly looking at praedial larceny, because praedial larceny is such an important issue in relation to agriculture and fisheries. And I will provide an update on our mining sector and some of the issues that we've had since Hurricane Melissa, and also how we move forward towards the rest of the financial year and towards 2026. We all know Hurricane Melissa left a significant impact on our country, damaging crops, livestock, fisheries, agri-parks, irrigation systems. Over 70,000 farmers would have been impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Over $30 billion in damage, and by the World Bank's own rapid assessment, probably closer to $60 billion in damage. Crops were damaged, destroyed, livestock operations were disrupted, fishing beaches, gear were compromised, irrigation systems were affected, but thank God our farmers and fishers remain resilient. And I think we should take this opportunity to give our farmers and fishers a big round of applause for how they have stood up in the face of adversity. From the outset, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining activated a structured recovery framework. We have our Hurricane Melissa Recovery Task Force chaired by Director Price, and our objective was to stabilize production, to quickly reduce the cost of re-entry for our farmers and our fishers, and to protect food security. The Rural Agriculture Development Authority will have led the underground crop recovery effort across all parishes. Immediately following Hurricane Melissa, RADA embarked on a coordinated seed and planting material distribution program, prioritizing short-term and quick-bearing crops to stabilize supply in the shortest possible time. In fact, to date, we have distributed 14,038 packs of assorted vegetable and fruit seeds valued at $90 million. These inputs have impacted over 10,000 farmers. We have also been able, through that, to establish about 840 hectares of production island-wide. We have continued to roll out our national onion production program, where we've distributed 780 packs of onion seed, focusing on Texas and Super X, and we've been able to already establish 43 hectares of onion production. We all know how important fertilizer is after a disaster, and through the support of the government of Morocco and our Moroccan fertilizer program, we have already been able to distribute 7,205 bags of fertilizer, impacting over 2,500 farmers and restoring production across 540 hectares. We knew and we recognized, and in my first intervention, as a part of our response mechanism, we wanted to ensure that our farmers had access to land preparation, because that is one of the biggest barriers for entry and for recovery. And as such, we removed the costs of land preparation through our RADA system. I'm pleased to report that already we have prepared 504 hectares for approximately 1,300 farmers at a value of $80 million. We also did not stop the initiatives that were already in play. We already know that mechanization is critical, especially in this era of persistent labor shortages. So prior to Hurricane Melissa, we had started the process of procuring walk-behind tractors, augers, and those have since come and have been deployed across a number of parishes. So we have deployed 6 walk-behind tractors across St. Thomas, St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, and St. Anne, and Manchester, supporting our onion and vegetable land preparation. In addition, 6 earth augers have been deployed in Trelawney, St. Anne, Clarendon, and Manchester. I was very happy to see, although it wasn't highlighted, I was very happy to see that in one of the articles about the recovery, one of the pictures was a farmer and a more experienced farmer using one of our walk-behind new tractors in that Clarendon bog hole area. We have also continued to embark on our National Irish Potato Program. To date, 850 hectares has been established, supporting 1,454 farmers. We do expect that by March, we will have about 12,996 tons of Irish ready for the market. Water availability is critical and has been critical to the recovery process. Through the National Irrigation Commission, emergency water support and restoration works were implemented, particularly in our western region. We learned a lot from Hurricane Beryl, and what we did during the time between Beryl and Melissa was to strengthen our resilience of our national irrigation system by ensuring that we had backup power generation for some of our main irrigation networks. In fact, a week after Hurricane Melissa, we were able to restore irrigation services to 75% of our customers. I think that deserves a big round of applause. And by week 5 post-Hurricane Melissa, 98% of our customers have had access to irrigation services. I really want to also thank JPS because we did see a big difference since Beryl to now, where the JPS is prioritizing the NIC systems as part of the critical infrastructure to be restored. And again, it's not by chance, where once the farmers have access to water, they will get out and produce again. But we haven't only done that. In fact, not only did we restore the irrigation services, we removed the cost to the farmers to get the irrigation water. And we have been providing water free to our farmers since the passage of Hurricane Melissa. In fact, the NIC has delivered 135 million gallons of water at no cost to our farmers since Hurricane Melissa. And of that amount, we carved out a facility to ensure that communities, farming communities in the hardest hit areas who did not have access to potable water services were provided with free non-potable water. And we have trucked 5.2 million gallons of non-potable water across varying communities. In fact, our interventions have benefited 60 communities, and it has supported over 4,000 hectares of agricultural production, assisting an estimated 3,416 persons. We also implemented, to ease the pressure on our farmers, a 3-month moratorium on irrigation bills up to October 28th. So persons who had their bills that would have became due by Hurricane Melissa, they have been given a 3-month moratorium which ends at the end of January, so that they could focus their resources on bringing back production. Other agencies like the Jamaica Dairy Development Board had targeted interventions to stabilize livestock and dairy production. We've provided pharmaceuticals, feed, fencing materials, generators across the affected farms. In fact, recognizing the infrastructural damage sustained by farms, a number of our dairy farmers lost their fencing. We place significant priority on providing the support so that they could again contain their animals and could lead to greater food security. 1,000 fence posts have already been purchased at the cost of about $700,000. 500 of these posts have been distributed to farmers, including Ebony Park, Heart Academy, and multiple individual producers. Energy disruption posed a major risk to milk preservation. So to mitigate the risk, one of the things that the Dairy Development Board did was to provide 6 generators that were deployed to dairy farms in St. Elizabeth and Hanover to ensure that our dairy farmers would be able to save their milk and to produce and save and provide that to the various companies. Feed support formed another critical pillar of our response. A total of 254 bags of dairy ration have been procured and distributed to farmers across St. Thomas, St. Catherine, and St. Anne. One of the big areas that we saw significant damage and dislocation is apiculture. We lost thousands of colonies of bees. And as such, we recognized very early that the beekeeping sector would require urgent intervention following the passage of Hurricane Melissa, especially as we know the dual importance of bees. Bees provide honey, but also their pollination services are critical to agricultural production. So through the apiculture unit of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, we have implemented a targeted recovery program. We procured 5,590 bags of beet sugar, valued at about $39.3 million. And to date, we have already distributed 2,852 bags, where 808 beekeepers across 7 parishes have received support. Therefore, safeguarding pollination services that underpin agriculture. We have focused on coffee, we have focused on cocoa, and our spices. Again, our highland and mountainous regions suffered significant damage from Hurricane Melissa. JACRA has been leading that recovery effort from November, where we implemented a structured recovery program combining farmer training, input distribution, and targeted replanting support. To date, we have had 23 resuscitation and crop care training sessions. And it's very important that after a hurricane, the focus is not just on input provision, but the reality is that in the changing climate, training is as critical as the input support. But we have provided some direct inputs. We've provided 6,400 coffee seedlings. We've provided 275 cocoa seedlings. Those have already been distributed. In fact, we've also distributed 5,800 bags of fertilizer to our farmers. And while we haven't spoken about it much, all of these programs have had a social element where our agencies have also gone out in the field to issue care packages across our high production zones. And when we say our agency, that also means the JS that has been very active working with farmers to issue that sort of social support to get them back up and running. Our agri-parks suffered significant damage. About $1.3 billion in damage was suffered across our 8 agri-parks and affected about 11 production zones. We have already provided the Agri-Invest Corporation $30 million for them to drive the recovery effort across the agri-parks. And they have been doing that, focusing on things like seeds, fertilizer, chemicals, land preparation. In fact, one of the big policy changes is that we have given a moratorium on lease, which is valued at $40 million and supports 440 investors across 2,750 hectares. We've also focused on drain cleaning, especially in our Mango Agri-Park, cleaning 10 kilometers of drain, and we've contracted across the agri-parks 4 private tractor owners to carry out land preparation work covering approximately 240 acres so that they can be ready for short and medium term production. The recovery activities within the agri-parks have included this free land preparation, around 360 hectares, distribution of 700 bags of fertilizer, allocation of 28,000 milliliters of agricultural chemicals, and because of that intervention, we've started to see multiple crop categories return: vegetables, condiments, spices, root, tuber crops across the agri-park. And that's a good opportunity to now segue into what we have been seeing. I think we we get a sort of feel of the sort of interventions that we have had. And there are others, and over time we will give you the other areas that we have been intervening in, and later on I'll tell you some of the things that are to come. But as a result of the resilience of our farmers and also the swift post-hurricane interventions of the ministries and its agencies, we have seen a rapid recovery in relation to crop agriculture. Several short-term vegetable crops are now available in large quantities. Current data confirms that we actually have excess production in several crops. And it's amazing that less than 3 months after Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 hurricane that wiped out some of our most productive agricultural areas, that we can stand here and speak about excess crops. I think, again, the farmers deserve a big, big round of applause. So current data does confirm that we're seeing excess production in several crops, including cucumbers, lettuce, pak choy, and string beans. Parishes reporting notable surpluses include Clarendon, with excess sweet potatoes, sweet peppers, cucumbers, and lettuce; St. Elizabeth, with yellow squash, cauliflower, cucumbers, string beans, zucchini, lettuce, and pak choy; Manchester, with carrots, cucumbers, lettuce, pak choy, and string beans; Westmoreland, with zucchini, cucumbers, lettuce, pak choy; St. Anne, with string beans, lettuce, and pak choy; and St. Thomas, particular, with cucumbers. In some of the areas, you will appreciate that the excess has come by virtue of a downturn in demand. So we have seen, for example, slow movement in yellow squash, cauliflower, zucchini, and romaine lettuce, because these crops are primarily produced for hotel and hospitality sector, and the current uptake levels remain uneven as that sector continues its own recovery following Hurricane Melissa. In fact, based on our field data, string beans are experiencing an average hotel uptake of about 30%. Zucchini, about 75%, squash, 80%, cucumbers, 60%, lettuce, 60%. These realities are again compounded by some of the operational constraints within the supply chain. So we already know that there's limited cold storage capacity, but that has been further reduced by the loss of electricity to some of our main purveyors. Now, while people will be able to run some of their households on generators, it's very challenging for these large purveyors to use generated backup power to drive the cold storage facilities that they have. And that has constrained the ability to redirect surplus produce to alternative markets, especially during peak harvest periods. One of the things that people should recognize, the farmers would be preparing for what would have been the peak of the hotel season with some of these items, like the squash, like the zucchini. So we have seen a significant increase in production in some areas, and we are seeing excess on the market. And the beauty with agriculture is that you can tell whether agriculture is doing well or not. It's not something that you can hide. And consumers have already started to see significant reduction in vegetable prices and fruit prices across the markets. In fact, most of the prices have been reduced by between 14 to 77%. Watermelon, 63%, dropping from $880 per kilogram to $330 per kilogram. Scotch bonnet, that everybody has been complaining about, started to see some Scotch bonnet come in, and we're seeing a 20% reduction in the price. We're seeing a 33% reduction in pumpkin. We're seeing a 20% reduction in sweet pepper. We're seeing a 40% reduction in carrot. So across a number of lines, the consumers are feeling good because they are seeing what they would deem more affordable fresh produce. However, this stage of the recovery has to be managed carefully, because we have to ensure that markets can absorb what the farmers are producing so that our farmers can invest again. So the ministry is going to be taking some deliberate steps to address what has become now a glut in some of our crop lines. We are embarking on a series of targeted farmers market commencing this Friday across the entire island for the next few weeks, where RADA and our JS networks will work together to expand market access and support direct farmer to consumer sales. In fact, we are putting in a strategy to provide logistic support, which means transportation support to help the farmers get to the farmers market so that they can sell these excess items. Additionally, the ministry, largely through RADA, is engaging our agro-processors to see how they can absorb excess production and convert it into juices, concentrates, and other value-added products. We're also in the process now of crafting a new buyback program, something that we did during COVID-19, where we saw a same downturn in the hotel markets, where the ministry directly intervened and provided a market for the farmers by buying the produce and then redistributed it. We are now in the final stages of putting that program together to look at how much we will spend, what areas we will target. Again, I would love to see us return to the box of produce that we did during COVID-19, because it allowed some of our urban consumers to have things like squash and zucchini, eggplant, these things for the first time produced right here in Jamaica. So we are moving on that. The last area of our intervention will focus on storage. So already we have put in place 2 20-foot storage containers in Flagaman, powered by renewable energy. We expect to operationalize those over the next 3 weeks. We're also going to be launching our Essex Valley storage facility in early February. That will give us the capacity to store about 22 containers of fresh produce. And I'm saying now that once we launch, the Agro Invest Corporation will have to operationalize that in the shortest possible time. In the first quarter of our next financial year, we also expect to launch our content cold storage facility, which we broke ground for last year, which should be almost finished, and we will put those storage facilities into operation so that the farmers will have an outlet for their produce. There are also, so we are not at the end of our recovery effort. In fact, when I first spoke, we outlined a sort of 6-month recovery effort, and we are keeping to that time frame. And I did say to the nation that we will continue to monitor to see if our interventions are literally bearing fruit. The good news thus far is that we have seen the fruit of our interventions. So we will continue. We already have under contract an additional 10,750 seeds, vegetable seeds and fruit seeds that we will be distributing over the next few months, targeting an additional 7,000 farmers and trying to get 600 hectares under production. We are going to be doing a special yam farmer program. First thing that we did in support of our yam farmers was to send our agricultural land management unit into the field to look at the soil. Because as most of you are aware, our land farmers operate mostly in hilly terrain. And if you saw those hills after Hurricane Melissa, you would have seen that they suffered from significant, what we now know as salt burn, where you would have seen all the trees, all the leaves. So we wanted to ensure that the soil still had the same nutrient content and to design our fertilizer regime, our nutritional regime, to particularly cater to what we were seeing. So we're going to start this month distributing 5,130 bags of granular fertilizer towards our yam farmers. We're also going to be targeting some of our protected agriculture systems. So we are going to be driving protected agriculture in a big way this year. We're going to be helping our greenhouse farmers put back on their plastics. We're also going to be establishing about 32 new greenhouses. Some of them are going to be focused on nursery production so that we have the planting material to continue to drive the recovery. Additionally, we're going to be providing some tower farms because this is not just about building back. This is literally about building back better, stronger, and more resilient. One of the things that we saw in Hurricane Melissa was one of our tower farms in Jamaica were able to easily dismantle their farm, pack it up in their storeroom, and as soon as Melissa passed, to reestablish their farms. These farms are modular. They require less space. We have already in procurement about 250 of these farms that we're going to be distributing to open field farmers, to schools, and also to some urban farmers so that we can start the process of building agriculture back better. I know a number of you are very interested in banana and plantain. And Ms. Coney loved to hear about that, right? So we have already started a program of recovery for our banana and plantain farmers. Some of our banana and plantain farmers are a part of a catastrophe fund managed by the Banana Board, and they would have already gotten their payouts. And their payouts were largely in the form of supporting their nutritional regime to build back their farms. And a lot of them were out very early after Hurricane Melissa, trying to stand back up, trying to cut, trying to make sure that they can get production as quickly as possible. With that said, it was a complete wipeout of our commercial banana and plantain production. And this is not an area that we countenance imports in. It is much too risky. The Banana Board and the teams have done an excellent job of keeping Jamaica free from some of the diseases that have plagued banana and plantain crops all over the world, and we want to keep it that way. So we are now on the cusp of implementing a broader recovery program, a $100 million Hurricane Melissa recovery program, which will be implemented by the Banana Board and the Rural Agricultural Development Authority. The program is so designed to reach scale. We expect to at least reach 5,000 banana and plantain farmers island-wide and to support the rehabilitation of more than 2,500 hectares of damaged farms. We're going to provide them with some fertilizer based on verified damage assessments and farm size to ensure equity and effectiveness. We did this after Hurricane Beryl, and we saw good returns on the investment. Ms. Coney had told me that it would take us about 6 to 7 months, 8 months at most, Minister, and we were at the earlier end in terms of the recovery. And I'm hoping that with this intervention, we will also be at the earlier end in that regard. Let me turn quickly to our fisheries sector, which was one of the sectors that suffered the most significant damage from Hurricane Melissa. It destroyed a number of our fishing beaches. Over 3,000 vessels were damaged or destroyed. A number of our fishers suffered damage to their engines. And even worse, when they went back out for their fish pots, a number of them found nothing out there. We have taken a comprehensive approach to treat with their issues. Firstly, we have implemented a 6-month moratorium on all license and registration fees. That's from November, and it goes all the way to May. So our fishers can come and renew and register free of cost. That also goes to if you would have lost your license, your ID in the storm, you will get all of those things free of cost. And already we have benefited 725 fishers from this initiative across Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, and St. and those are the parishes that we're focused on for this intervention. Again, fishers who lost your license, please report it and you will get the replacement. Beyond fee relief, we have allocated $180 million to a structured Hurricane Melissa recovery program, which is being implemented through the National Fisheries Authority. And we're doing it in two phases. Our initial phase, which started in November of last year, was in immediate stabilization. So what we have been doing is, one, helping to clear, clean, and remove debris from a number of our beaches so that our fishers would have access. If that was never done, our fishers would never have been able to go back out. And we did that in Black River, we did that in White House, and we have engaged contractors to do key refurbishment work in key fishing beaches, including Great Bay and White House in Westmoreland. Those contractors are in place and are working as we speak. We also procured, to treat with the shortage of potable water on our fishing beaches, 10 large water tanks with a capacity of 2,500 gallons, and assign them to fishing beaches across Alligator Pond, St. Mary's in Westmoreland, Montego Bay and St. James to provide potable water. We have been distributing fishing wire. In fact, we've procured 2,260 rolls of fishing wire, and through partnerships with the Jamaica Fishermen Cooperative, Tagwell, JSIF, Breads, Sandals, an additional 1,200 rolls of wire have already been distributed across 33 fishing beaches. So we've reached fishers in Manchester, St. Mary, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, Trelawney, and St. Thomas. And St. Anne, I don't see a name, but we're coming very, very shortly. I'm sure we went to St. Anne as well. The next phase of our fisheries support will move to direct grants. So we're going to be doing some cash grants to help our fishers treat with boat repairs and engine replacement. In fact, our cash grants will run from $150,000 all the way up to $5 million, depending on the level of damage and the size of the fishers. You know, we have artisanal, we have intermediate, we have our industrial fishers, and we are going to be providing support. In fact, already we've started to issue those grants, and I think about 5 of our intermediate fishers have already received $1 million to support the reestablishment of their boats and the replacement of their engines. We are also going to be distributing boats. We had started a process where we have a program for our young fishers that we started the distribution of boats towards the end of 2025. We still have some of those boats left to distribute, and I think it's even more important now, but we will be procuring an additional 20 boats that we will distribute to fishers in need so that they can go back out. All right, not doing too badly. 2 more areas and then we're finished. I wanted to speak a little bit about praedial larceny because I think, you know, it's one of the areas that has really plagued our agricultural sector for a long time. It's one of the main deterrents for people who want to get involved in agriculture. And I think we have been making some really good strides in the fight against praedial larceny. It does remain one of our persistent threats to farmers. However, in 2025, we would have strengthened our legislative framework through amendments to the Praedial Larceny Prevention Act, which came into effect July 15, 2025. These reforms increase penalties and introduce victim impact statements, giving farmers a formal voice in court proceedings. In fact, these amendments build on changes that we made in 2023 to the Agricultural Produce Act, which include raising fines to $3 million and expanding definition of agricultural produce and putting in a mandatory registration and licensing regime that will be operationalized through RADA this year. One of the big wins for us in 2025 was the establishment of the Agricultural Protection Branch of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And it's the first time that we have an entire branch of the force that is treating with agricultural crime. And we are already reaping the rewards from that. Now, the branch comprises of 75 officers operating island-wide, and we are seeing the tangible results. Arrests have risen from 78 in 2023. We had 139 in 2024, and with this new agricultural protection branch in 2025, 381 persons were arrested for praedial larceny. I think the branch deserves a big round of applause. We've also seen increases in cases before the court, which have moved from 201 cases in 2024 to 337 cases in 2025, a 68% increase, showing improved case preparation and prosecution readiness. And the one that I really love, convictions surged from 9 convictions in 2024 to 209 convictions last year, over 2,000% increase, which is really a breakthrough in terms of judicial success and offender accountability. I think we are on the road to break the back of praedial larceny. I know traceability is critical and fundamental to that, and we have been working to ramp up our animal tagging services. I think the farmers appreciate how critical it is, and I know we've had a number of meetings and we have put literally more boots on the ground to ensure that we can get more tagging done. I see Dr. Ramlal came in at the right time, right, to ensure that we can get more tagging done, because this is important in the fight against praedial larceny. We have to strengthen movement controls, and we have to continue to expand our central livestock database. Quickly, a little bit about mining. Hurricane Melissa did have a negative impact on our mining and minerals sector. In fact, after our initial assessments and engaging our partners, we have revised our estimates to about $25 billion in terms of the impact that it would have had on our mining sectors. Majority of losses were recorded in our industrial mineral sectors, particularly our big, large quarries and limestone operators, where prolonged power outages, damaged access roads, and business interruption significantly affected output. Within our bauxite and alumina sector, we saw physical damage recorded at plants in St. Elizabeth and St. Anne, including structural damage to Port Kaiser. Basically all of our bauxite and alumina plants would have had to go into precautionary shutdowns because we were looking to a Category 5 hurricane. And you remember that with Melissa, it took us a long time to really determine where in the island it was going to go. At one point, we were very sure it was coming to Clarendon and Kingston, and as such, our companies had to take these measures. So those disruptions would again take some time for our companies to get back up to their productive capacity. Nonetheless, our bauxite sector, our aluminum sector showed resilience in 2025. We are projecting that exports would have increased in 2025, with mining's contribution to GDP expected to rise from 1.8% to over 2% in 2025. Importantly, despite themselves suffering tremendous damage, mining operators supported the national recovery efforts in a big way and cleared about 300 kilometers of major roadways free of cost after Hurricane Melissa. And I think they deserve a big, big round of applause. We have also actioned our agencies towards coordinated recovery and relief programs. The Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited have been focusing on communities most affected, looking at staff welfare, rapid restoration of national assets, and support for relief logistics, and targeted interventions in parishes of St. Anne and St. Elizabeth. In fact, they have been on the ground trying to ensure that one, the Reynolds Pier remains operational, and that was brought back into operation swiftly, re-establishing readiness to support post-hurricane recovery logistics. Within days, we restored the core port functions, and the first cruise ship arrived shortly after the hurricane, and people may not have realized, arrived at our Reynolds Pier shortly after the hurricane, and that's a big win for our Jamaica Bauxite Limited. At Discovery Bauxite, technical assessment repairs were conducted promptly, allowing for a swift and safe resumption of operations. One thing that we saw from the Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited towards the end of the year was our first ever barge shipment of boulders and marl, which really signals a new direction in terms of our industrial minerals. And the team have been out providing care packages, providing zinc, providing hardware material in some of our hardest hit areas. The same is true for our Jamaica Bauxite Institute that have delivered relief supplies valued at close to $1 million across a number of parishes, including St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, and a number of communities, and continue to provide support in terms of water tanks and weekly water deliveries. So it has really been an all hands on deck approach by the ministry to drive our Hurricane Melissa recovery. So as we look ahead, and one more area that I failed to mention that I know you will ask me about, we have seen a significant downturn, as we know, in our egg production, right? Thankfully, through the work of the ministry and the work of our producers and the Egg Farmers Association, we have been able to tap into external sources to get both liquid eggs to reduce the demand on table eggs and to bring in some table eggs. And I think now we're seeing a little regularization in terms of the supply as we continue to drive and to ramp back up pullet production so that our farmers can get their layers again, so that we can get back up egg production. This is a long-term intervention. It will take us probably the rest of this year to bring back production to where it was and go over into next year. But it is something that we are working on diligently. So as we look ahead, it is important to be clear. Recovery is not a single event or a single budget line. It is a process. It requires discipline, transparency, and continued partnership with farmers, fishers, and industry stakeholders. Across this ministry, our focus is now firmly on resilience. This includes strengthening disaster risk management systems, improving market coordination, expanding storage and agro-processing capacity, and supporting producers to adopt climate-smart practices. The lessons of Hurricane Melissa are being applied deliberately from catastrophe funds and insurance, and I will on occasion have occasion to speak a little bit more about what we're doing in relation to insurance, to diversify markets, stronger infrastructure, and building systems that can withstand future shocks. To our farmers, fishers, and our rural family, we have reached some of you. We have not yet reached all of you. But you can be assured that help is on the way. The government remains engaged, present, and accountable to you. And we are going to hold your hands as we drive this recovery together. We will feed Jamaica again. Thank you.
Keep the applause going. Keep the applause going. Recovery is not a single event. It is a process. Now, while the minister was speaking, I thought I would take some of the highlights so that I can just repeat it when I come here. But boy, it seemed as though pretty much everything were highlights. So, Minister, can we just give him another round of applause? The one that I managed to to put down was we're not just recovering, we're building back better, stronger, and more resilient. And I think we have to take that to heart. It's a very important statement, and a statement which is at the heart of what we have been doing in the recovery process. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the point in today's proceedings where we will be taking your questions. But before we do so, we want to just thank the production team, the PR team, and all of the persons that have been involved to make this event the success it has been so far. And for that, we are truly, truly grateful. We now proceed to the question and answer segment. I suspect that, Minister, we could take like 3 questions and then you respond and we proceed in that way. All right, so floor is open. Okay, I am taking it that the presentation was so clear and satisfying that we don't have any questions. All right, I won't say going once, going twice. I think we should say gone. Eh? All right, interesting. So what is left for me to do then is to bring this very important and engaging event to a close. It is dubbed the Hurricane Melissa Recovery and a sector update for the agricultural sector. And we thank you all for having been here and for your participation. And we wish you good luck and Godspeed as you go your different directions. Thank you very much.